Okay, we are live.
Awesome. Hello, welcome back. Adam and I are super excited to be back with another Recruit Enablement AMA. Before we dive in, Adam, how are you? What's new?
I'm very well, and well, as you know, I'm building a new company, and the highs and lows of building a new company are very extreme. So it's not for everybody. In fact, it's for almost nobody. There's a whole load of like times during the day that you get a message coming in, and you're expecting a yes in the message, and it's a no, and it's unexpected.
Mm,
But then what happens is like during the course of the day, there's also times where you get unexpected messages coming in with people who want to progress things. This it could be customers, it could be people that we're hiring, it could be investors. It's like, oh, you're constantly looking for the right people to be saying yes to you on different things. And sometimes people come out of nowhere. You weren't expecting a yes, and you get a yes, and you're like, it makes it all worth it. So
yes. Well, it sounds like you got a recent yes, which I love.
I've had a couple of yeses today, which is good.
I love it. I love it. Well, we'll send good energy for those yeses to keep coming your way.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I just got a yes on my Thanksgiving menu. That is what I'm focused on. So over here in the States, we are barreling towards our, big Thanksgiving holidays. We're planning all the turkey, the ham, the mashed potatoes. Sister-in-law, brother-in-law, their kids are coming up. And so just making plans for them. It's exciting.
It's basically like another Christmas, right? You get two Christmases.
Yeah, so Christmases we get gifts. This we get the gift of, Christmas
Turkey.
movies, turkey hangovers, canned cranberry sauce, depending on like what your household serves up. But yeah, it's a Christmas in a sense that it's a fun time to get together, be with family, um, you know, veg out, get away from work and do some things that you love.
It sounds like the meal that we have in the UK on Christmas Day. So
Okay.
do you have the same type of meal on Christmas Day or
I don't
not?
know, you'll have to enlighten me. So we have turkey is
Yeah,
kind of the big, that's the staple. And
yeah,
then you have like an array of sides, very carb heavy. So mashed potatoes, some people do yams, stuffing or dressing, depending on like your preference.
yeah.
My niece has requested corn on the cob. She is 9 or 7, actually. This one's 7.
Nice,
So we'll have corn this year, which is which
nice.
is fun. Yeah, Christmas we mix things up. So my mom, I grew up in South Florida.
Yeah.
My mom fancies herself a member of the Cuban community. We're not Cuban, but she loves the culture. She loves the food. And so we
Me
do a big
too.
Cuban style dinner on Christmas in my house.
Nice. Yeah, no, your
Yeah.
Thanksgiving is what we have in Christmas. In
Okay.
Yeah. I'm a bit ignorant, but I don't know what they do in Hanukkah. I'm not sure. I doubt it's turkey.
I'm not sure like the meal, but some fun games, multiple nights of celebration. And so, yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Awesome. Well,
Cool.
should we bring in our guest?
Yes.
Cool, cool. All right.
Angelo, thank you for joining us. It's great to have you. And give us a quick introduction to you. I feel like I've asked you that about 10 times this year. I have, because we've done quite a few things together, but you've not been
Yeah.
on here before. So, yeah, introduction to you. And there's been changes in your world recently. So, who are you?
Absolutely. Very good. Thanks, Adam, and thanks, Holland. And by the way, Holland, don't forget about the pumpkin pie with the whipped cream,
Oh,
right?
yes.
You can't forget about that. Uh, I went to the gym, so I'm getting prepared for next week. So
Yeah. Do that turkey trot beforehand.
exactly. Very good. All right. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Angelo Pancho. I've been in the recruiting industry for quite some time, a very similar time frame as Adam, so over 20 plus years, starting in the late 90s. Started off in the staffing industry, worked at one of the largest staffing agencies in Los Angeles. And then I moved up to the Northern Cal area, so I'm in Sacramento now. Um, and so I've been in recruiting, so both on the staffing, but also on the corporate recruiting side. And then about 5 years ago, I switched over to the talent enablement side. So I used to work for a company called what's the largest industrial automation company in the world, Bronco Automation, and I implemented and created the talent enablement department for them. And that includes a lot of different factors. We can get into that a little bit later. And my role recently switched, so now I'm with a company called ERM. So I'm the new manager for talent enablement and sourcing. So definitely excited about this opportunity. Just started just this week, and so
nice.
thank you. Yeah, so it's really excited about this.
So you're literally still finding your way around the intranet and all that sort of stuff.
I am, and having the 1 hour calls with the IT department for the laptop setups. But yeah, so but it's all good. It's all good.
Love it.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I just muted myself by accident there a little bit. So okay, tell us about like recruiter enablement. To give us a like, what is it for you? It's like I'm not even going to prompt you on this because I don't need to. Not that I don't need to, but I'm also not going to give my perspective. Like, tell us about what it is. What's it all about for you?
Well, so it entails a lot of different elements and functions within the talent acquisition space, if you will. And so I like to look at it. It's when you look at a project management Venn model, right? You get the three circles and you have something in the middle. That to me is recruiter enablement. And so what that means is that it's a mixture of anywhere from overseeing the recruiting technologies. At the same time, for me, I do a lot of training with these technologies, but also focusing on different strategies, talent strategies, on how to enable the talent acquisition team, not only talent acquisition team, but now even hiring managers on how to use these technologies to recruit and attract talent more than anything. And so it's a wide variety of different mixture things. I'm sure I'm missing a lot of it. Of course, within it, there's a lot of subsets. So it can be anywhere from, and we'll talk about this today, social recruiting aspect of it. There's also talent intelligence reports for strategic workforce planning. There's also, of course, on the operational side, making sure that all of our candidates are in line with the company policies and protocols and guidelines, et cetera, as far as how we navigate them, all sorts of things. And so, but those are really my primary focus. That on top of specialized recruiting and sourcing projects that I worked on. And so a lot, but it's kind of like everything in between, right? In between the recruiting operations and the actual recruiting. So everything in between.
So you've almost got a license to roam. Would that be fair to say?
A license
to roam, license to get involved in almost everything.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, and that's exactly the way I felt, and I still feel that, which is great. And just being exposed to so many different technologies, strategies, programs throughout my recruiting tenure, you gain so much knowledge and you gain so much experience with these different technologies and strategies, both not only on a theoretical side of things, but also on a practical, hands-on side of things as well.
You know, I've said this a lot, and I'm gonna say it again. I believe that I'm going to say something that sounds negative, but I'm going to say a positive after, right? The negative thing I'm going to say is I am absolutely certain there are going to be less people doing traditional recruitment jobs in talent acquisition teams in 12 months and 24 months and 60 months from now. However, I do believe there's going to be more diverse and interesting jobs which emerge. And the three of us are all examples of that. Holland is dedicated to employee listening currently. Angelo, you're in recruitment enablement. I'm in technology. And so, I really do think that it's all broadening out. But for those people that are watching this who are maybe doing a kind of more traditional recruitment job, who are thinking, right, like, what are some of the options that are open to me? Like, tell us about the steps for how did you get into this area? Like, you started as a recruiter. How did you get to what you're doing just now?
Absolutely. Thanks for the question. So I started off at Rockwell Automation as a senior talent advisor. So traditional recruiter, right? Having the recs, meeting with the hiring managers. But then 6 months into my role, the managers at the time realized I can do a lot more with the technologies that they currently have, and also different talent strategies that I was bringing forward with. And so they slotted me into a different role. The title was a little bit different at the time. saw my LinkedIn profile, but it was more on focusing on technology and strategies, right? And then we had a new executive come on board, and shortly after that, I switched over. He officially made it official and said, okay, well, let's have you as a new title, and that's the Global Talent Enablement and Infrastructure Lead. And so, and that's how it really started off. But then I started simultaneously, I was doing a lot of, I started to do training sessions. So not only one-on-ones, but I got asked to be a guest speaker for our EMEA TA team to show them some of the strategies that we have for the technologies that we're using. At the time, we were using Brass Ring. And before,
Throwback.
there you go, right? You like that? And so it's interesting because before that training session with the EMEA team, so EMEA, of course, Europe, Middle East, and Africa, I put a little survey to the team, and I wanted to get a feel as to where they're at as far as their capabilities or knowledge of the system that we currently have. So after I got that survey back, it was like 95% of the people, they didn't know how to use different platforms, such as Brass Ring, such as how to navigate on LinkedIn Recruiter, right? Just little, just basic technologies that we currently have access to. And of course, that's not a knock to them. That was just more, it was more of a gauge to see where we're at. And then from there, I started to do some aggressive training sessions on how to use Brass Ring effectively. A lot of people didn't realize that they can do some searching for candidates on Brass Ring, the little nuances, how to change the filters, how to do Boolean searches on Brass Ring. And then what happened was that, so simultaneously, about 6 months later, we ended up as a company moving over to Workday. So after all my trainings with Brass Ring, we had to do another training set with Workday. And luckily, I used both technologies at my previous companies, so Brass Ring and also Workday. And so now even Workday was a whole other paradigm shift for our team members as to how to use this technology for recruiting and sourcing purposes. Yeah, we can track candidates down, we can extend the offers, all sorts of things on Workday. But when it comes to actually sourcing and recruiting and comparing candidates on Workday, it was obvious that nobody knew how to do that. But I had some experience from the past, and so I knew how to implement that in our training sessions. And so one final thing is that after that EMEA team training call, I started to get more calls from other representatives. So then I got a call from one of the HR directors in EMEA, and he wanted me to be a guest speaker on their particular meeting. And that was HR, TA, along with organization development within this call. There was like 100 people in this call, and he wanted me to teach on LinkedIn strategies, basic things like how to set up a LinkedIn profile, how to post, where to find our opportunities, right? So in my mind, that was encouraging to me because it showed me that it's evolving, right? The business practices are evolving to different platforms. And even if it's basic to us, because we're in it day in, day out, they don't know what to do because that's not their role. That the expectation isn't there for them as far as how to post something on LinkedIn. And so then after that, it just escalated. And so the evolution, so then I started building things out internally as far as a centralized hub for best practices on sourcing, best practices on LinkedIn, et cetera. We can get into that a little bit later here, but that's how it evolved. And so here we are 5 years later. I did over 200 training sessions with the teams and different variations of the teams.
Yeah.
I'm interested to know, like the sort of characteristics, the like skills and traits that you had, which made you a successful recruiter. Like if I think about people working in enablement and people doing the job of a recruiter, I think there's a lot of things that a recruiter has, which are like really good skills for moving into enablement, such as curiosity, looking under, tenacity, looking under every rock, that type of thing. But then recruiters are often kind of lone wolves as well. So, you need to be very, very collaborative in the enablement job. Interested to know if you've got any comments on that.
Yes, absolutely. Very collaborative. In fact, one of the key elements for my role, both in the past and now in the current, is training. And so like I mentioned before, that I had over 200 training sessions, and that entailed large regional size trainings, different workshops on a Teams chat, or even one-on-ones, or even smaller group size training session. Number one thing is that you have to be flexible. You have to be flexible. And of course, us being in recruitment, I don't want to say it's naturally for us to engage with people, but it's a little bit easier for us because we're always talking to candidates, talking to hiring managers, HR business partners, right? And so we have that just the interpersonal skills and communication skills already. And so that segues into the training aspect of it. Now, of course, there's different nuances when it comes to training, right? You have to really speak to your audience. I mean, just because I know something, inside and out, that doesn't mean our audience knows it. And so I had to really, it's kind of like driving a, I don't know, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. You remember the stick shift car or manual car. You go to first gear, second gear, third gear, and of course maybe you go to fifth gear, then you go back to neutral. And so that's a very similar style when it comes to training. You have to really speak to your audience. And also the key element is making sure the audience is feeling welcomed and welcome for questions, welcome for collaborations. Because if I come across as someone who is a know-it-all and a show-off, then they don't want to engage with me anymore, right? And so you have to have that fostering care with the person that you are training, right? And just say, hey, great question. Let's take this step by step. Let's do it again if we have to, right? Let's go through the process. And so
Yeah.
that's the way I like training.
I love that. In my experience, enabling recruiters, they don't want to be told what to do. And I think that's just, kind of goes hand in hand with adult learning concepts across the board. People want to be guided. They want to be given options. Angelo, I want to go a little bit deeper on, making people feel welcome, how you bring people into the conversation. You spoke a little bit about that you've had the opportunity to do this work on a global scale. I want to talk through, like, how does approaching enablement on a global scale really impact your approach? What do you have to think through in terms of different cultural nuances, how recruiting may be different in a region, but then within countries in a given region, how content standards may differ depending on the audience that you're speaking to or the platform that you're using? Can you go a little deeper on the global aspect and really thinking through, how you approach training, enablement, and delivery against those different groups?
Absolutely. Love the global aspect of it. And thanks for the question, Holland. It's global to me. It just, when I was working at Rockwell and just helping out our team members globally, it really enlightened me where, wow, just because, again, I know something, I have to put myself in their shoes. Like, how are they learning? What is their learning capabilities, right? Because I always have to remind myself that, hey, they're learning in a different language. Sometimes their second, third, fourth, fifth language. And to me, it's just like, wow, that is incredible. And so I had to really slow it down with my training. So if I'm sharing my screen on how to do something on LinkedIn Talent Insights, and I'm showing my cursor, I had to really explain what I'm going to do. Okay, I'm going to go from this side to the right side. Here's where your admin side is, and then of course pause a few seconds so they can process it. And because I had to keep in mind also, they're not only learning a different language, but they're also toggling back and forth with the screen that I'm teaching on and their screen. And so, I had to really slow the pace down step by step, and even sometimes say it second, third time, right? Or 2 to 3 times, because, right, and I also had to reassure them, say, hey, are you guys, let me know when you guys are ready. Give me a thumbs up, put it in the comment that you're ready, right? And so the pace was extremely slower, which is good, because I had some comments when I first started training globally. I heard some comments from the feedback that I received that, Angelo, you're going too fast. Can you slow down? Yeah, they don't understand what you're saying, right? And so that dawned on me as, okay, yeah, I need to really slow the pace down. And just because I'm being slowed down, that doesn't mean I don't understand it. It just means I have to wait, right? It's very similar to when I'm teaching my kids, right? When they're younger, right? They're older now, but when they're younger, it's like I had to slow the pace down, right? This is how you hit a baseball. This is, these are the rules, right? You got to run to first base, right? This is how you throw a football. And so I had to slow the pace down and keep it, um, do it consistently and repetition.
I love that. So, Angela, you also talked about, you've done these 200 trainings, you've done this on a global scale. How do you make that sustainable? As I'm listening to you talk, you're one person, that's a lot of ground to cover. So talk to me a little bit about, post training, like where did this knowledge live? How did you document some of these like regional specific elements that you've learned, whether that's posting on social, specifics of training in a given platform? Let's go a little bit deeper there.
Definitely. So we at Rockwell, we have the Microsoft suites, and so every training was recorded. We had these, so I created this Power Hour sourcing sessions. So what that is that it's simply a 1 hour training session, and it's an optional training. And I made sure I put the word optional on there so people can hop on the call, hop off the call. So there's no, there's no commitment to that. But if they want to learn something, this is the place to go. And so, so we record those calls, but also at the same time, we had the PowerPoint presentations uploaded within our SharePoint drive. And so we're using SharePoint and also, of course, the Teams, the Microsoft Suites, et cetera. So that's where we stored it in a centralized location within SharePoint. And so we created a little hub for that. And then also too, when it came to just a follow-up, right? And make sure that people are collaborative on the chats, right? They can ask me questions, and I'm really quick to follow up with. On a global perspective as well, every region has something different as well, and so they also have their own separate channel on Teams or SharePoint site. And so I made sure that some of the content was duplicated if it made sense for their particular region.
I think that you've got a big advantage when it comes to doing training sessions, because as Ian said in the comments here, that if you've got a Scottish accent, that's a bit of a challenge when you're training globally. And I talk quite, I talk, for a Scottish person, I talk quite clearly and quite slowly, but a lot really don't. And as Americans, you got a big advantage because we get so much American TV like all over the world that your accent's pretty familiar to us. Anyway, let's talk about social media in particular, because I know that that's something that you've done a lot of work with. It plays such an important role in engaging candidates. And when you're working in a global environment, of course, people's preferences really vary significantly, not just in like global regions, but like by country. And of course, by different job types. Can you share some insights on why platforms like LinkedIn really do dominate like globally, but in certain places it's less effective in certain types of jobs in certain locations, like maybe parts of Asia Pacific or Latin America, for example? And like, what should recruiters know about this?
Right, definitely. And so, yes, it is going to vary from region to region. So just because we're so used to LinkedIn day in, day out, 24 hours a day nowadays, right? It's not the case in other parts. So like you had mentioned in Asia Pacific, that's not the case. So for example, in China, they banned LinkedIn there. I believe there's a certain app that they have for LinkedIn, but it's not what we have. Like they don't have what access that we have because of certain elements within LinkedIn. And so they had to navigate. So the key platform that they use, of course, in Asia Pacific, especially in China, is WeChat. WeChat is the everything app, right? And so just as a side note, that's exactly why Elon Musk changed the name from Twitter to X, because he saw the success of WeChat and he wants X to be an everything app as well, right? And so that's really so yeah, it is going to vary from country to country, right? So if now LinkedIn, of course, it's making some huge waves. Segue, obviously, it's been there already in EMEA, but even when it comes to Latin America, I've noticed a trend that there's a lot of more representation from Latin American countries, right? So from Brazil, Colombia, Argentina, Peru, right? Mexico. We considered Mexico and Latin America for the company I was with. But and so that's making a great segue. I'm seeing a lot more posting coming up in different languages as well. And so especially like in Portuguese or Espanol, right? And so it's definitely making its waves over there. Now, when it comes to different resources, as far as recruiting technologies, that's also going to vary, right? And so for example, in Poland, they'll use I'm sure I'm going to butcher this name, praxui.pl, stands for work.pl. Brazil, it's going to be bagas.com. That's a dominant job board over there. China, you got Li Ping, you got 51 jobs. When it comes to Australia and Singapore, you have seek.com or .co or .au. And so it's going to vary. Now in Colombia, they also have a job board that we use for certain campaigns. That was Torre, TORRE. I believe it's Torre.ai. And also another one in Argentina is Get On Board. That's a huge one down there as well. And so it is going to vary. I forgot in Mexico, what is it? Employo Nuevo. And so, it's going to vary from region to region. Now, even in the United States, it's not only LinkedIn, but there's so many different job boards out there. And one of them was what I really appreciate that we had. We had Circa, Circa.com. That was more for diversity, OFCCP compliance, and that was just, in my opinion, that was a phenomenal network of resources that they have connected to it. And I kept encouraging my team, you guys got to use this. It's a phenomenal resource. And so, in any case, we can go on and on. Then when it comes to different angles of talent enablement, such as talent intelligence, I'm a huge fan of Traub. That's more for strategic planning, workforce planning, talent intelligence boards, etc. And so, in fact, I met with Vijay, one of the owners, just a few weeks ago, to see if I can help his company out, be more of a community brand ambassador. So, in any case, but those are different technologies on the social recruiting front. That there's a lot of them out there.
Let's talk about it, like marketing channels. Let's continue with that for a second. So, like the need to use different channels globally, a lot, you got to balance that with the need to maintain like a brand consistency and that type of thing. Can you give like any examples of like how do you audit and align the kind of content that you can use? I think there's an example in Mexico where to do with manufacturing hiring, for example.
That's correct. And so this is a really trending topic, and it's an important topic because, especially with a large-scale organization, a global organization, there really needs to be some consistency with the employer branding and talent branding efforts, right? And so what I mean by that is the digital assets need to be consistent. The colors, the fonts, the logos, the images, right? And so you got to make sure that this is where the talent acquisition or talent enablement, if you will, they need to partner hand in hand with the employer branding team, the marketing teams of the company, right? Because the marketing teams, of course, their focus is more on, of course, the websites, the brochures at events, etc. They're not necessarily going into on the recruiting angle of it as much. They are in some cases, but this is where us on the talent acquisition side really need to step it up and partner with them on a consistent basis as far as the digital assets. So you brought up the point as far as the location in Mexico. We had a plant in Mexico where it was primarily manufacturing, and so they're hiring assemblers, technicians, etc., and those type of roles. Well, with that type of demographics and skill sets, they're not on LinkedIn, right? And so they're not on LinkedIn. They're a lot on Facebook, right? And on Facebook, so our recruiters did a fantastic job as far as recruiting them. But I noticed on the Facebook page that they created, the colors were definitely, the colors were some similar, but not on point. And some of the images on there wasn't where they were just basic, like cartoon type of images. And so they weren't company approved. And so this is where we need to step in and just more educate, say, hey, partner up with those team members there. And of course, it's not putting them down, but it's more like, hey, thanks for doing this. I appreciate this. I appreciate your enthusiasm. Just want to let you know, if you want to find some digital assets as far as branding, the colors, the themes, etc., here's where you go in SharePoint. We did also add it in our centralized recruiting hub on SharePoint, so you can find the colors here, the images, etc. Because it's important for them to know. Because also, too, is that some of the team members, of course, we have new team members, right? Some people leave, they come and go, and so they're just not familiar where to find certain assets. And so this is where more education comes in. You have to teach them and guide them to let them know, hey, this is where you find this particular asset, and this is how you can modify it. If you need something else, just let us know, and we'll work with the talent branding team to do some modifications.
Great. Talk to me a little bit about, so, we're talking about social and content strategy and kind of the broad strokes of your profile, some of your top line messaging, but we know, being in the recruiting space, that a lot of the activity takes place on a one-to-one basis. People want to be courted. They want to, know that you as a recruiter have invested, some time in getting to know them before you even reach out. And so would love to, unpack what is some advice that you have in terms of doing that one-to-one, direct outreach on social media? How do you really craft, personalized, authentic messages that really stand out? There's a lot of um, ANI enabled spamming going on. It's been going on for some time, but I think we've definitely seen an uptick with more people taking advantage of some of the AI tools at their fingertips. And so really dig into how do you, reach people one-to-one in an authentic way, and how do you scale that philosophy in a global team?
Right, definitely. That's a great question. And so when it comes to in-mails, this is like an ongoing discussion because there's really, in my opinion, there's not a one right way to do it. Of course, being personalized to the candidate is the most authentic way, right? I like to look at it, approach it as you would if you were approaching somebody new at a cafe. Let's just say you're standing in line at a cafe and there's somebody in front of you, and you strike up a conversation. Right, you're not going to say, "Hey, we have a great career opportunity. Hey, check out rec number R22555." Right, you're not going to say all that stuff. Right, you're going to strike up just a casual conversation with that person. You're going to say, "Hey, wow, it looks pretty gloomy outside, huh? Are you ready for the weather?" You strike up the conversation. Hey, by the way, I noticed that you're holding a laptop. What type of work do you do? Right. And so when it comes to the in-mail approach, right, obviously you want to look at their profile or resume if you have it. Take something that really stands out, where the person worked at in the past, what type of skill sets the person has, and mention that in the actual in-mail. I highly recommend that the first initial in-mail, you want to keep it really light, right? And so you don't want to put paragraphs down. You don't want to put a job description down. Don't put any type of hyperlinks, or don't put any type of uh, rec numbers on there, right? You want to strike up just a few sentences, right? 3 to 4 sentences, right? Hey, Adam, I saw that you are in the recruiting space. Really impressive background with creating this technology here. I'm very impressed by this. We're looking to do something internally with our company here. Do you have a few minutes to speak? Right? Something really light, something like that. Obviously, it's not going to be exactly like that. But then when you scale it, of course, it's okay to have templates. There's nothing wrong with that. That's why they have the tools there. Use it to our advantage. That doesn't mean you have to use them verbatim. You can always tweak the templates, craft it according to your audience, right? It's no different. Templates, to my mind, it's very comparable now to having a prompt library, right? Because now we're doing so many prompts, and it's getting confusing. Yeah, you can go to the history, but it's probably a little bit easier if you create a separate library, whether it's an Excel file or Google Sheet or even a OneNote, copy and paste it, right? It's okay to have that. There's nothing wrong with that. What's going to help you to be more effective and efficient, right? And so if you have to copy and paste it from a OneNote onto an email, that's absolutely fine. Or you can simply use one of the created templates there on LinkedIn emails if you want.
Yeah. I think there's also a little of accountability of like closing the loop and what's working and sharing that back out with your peers, your enablement team, to help with that scalability factor as well.
Absolutely.
So Adam mentioned this at the beginning of the call, and I definitely agree. I do think that we saw a lot of contraction last year in the recruiting space. I'm observing dollars being diverted instead of replacing some of that headcount into new technology, to help, better enable the team members who are still standing and curious as to your perspective. I think there's always been an important role for hiring managers to play, but I think as TA becomes more specialized in some of where they're delivering, I think the criticality of hiring managers and being able to tap into their networks and help them really play an active role in the recruiting process is really being highlighted in this moment. And so would love your perspective on, extending enablement to hiring managers. How do you really equip them to contribute to social recruiting, but recruiting, more broadly, as our space is continuing to evolve and just shape up differently here.
Definitely. Oh, so I love this topic. I love this topic because it's a near and dear to me, because this is another element that I created within the the talent enablement site, is the hiring manager enablement. Really important topic, especially nowadays. You're starting to see the trend shift, right? It's important, absolutely critical whether it is on your kickoff call with the hiring manager or sync up call, to collaborate with them and partner with them and really assure them that you are a strategic partner with them to find talent, right? Because if you look at the trends of the technologies, right? Okay, well, back in our days, right, Adam, I think Holland too as well. You know, we started off with fax machines, right? And email just came out, internet came out, right? There was no enablement, right?
I'm not fax machine old, Angelo.
Okay, I'm sorry. My apologies. I'm definitely a fax machine.
Yeah, Angelo and I are.
Yeah, yeah, you definitely. My apologies, Holland.
I'm
But
joking. I'm
I
joking.
know. But you
My
see the
daughter
technology.
aged me a little up here.
Oh, okay.
I digress.
You're on the smartphone age, right? And
I'm
so,
an elder millennial, so I
oh,
straddle pre and post internet.
okay, got it, gotcha. Well, you start to see the trends here, right? You know, nowadays the awareness is there, right? The hiring managers, of course, obviously everyone's on LinkedIn now, but they're starting to be aware that, wow, you see their competitors starting to post, you know, company culture, job posts, opportunities there. You know, they're starting to realize that they need to get on the ball as well here, as far as an actual leader, right? Because really, when it comes down to it, the hiring managers, they are branding themselves, right? And when you look at all of these resources, just on the professional standpoint, right? So you have the CV, you have the resume, you have a cover letter, you have a portfolio, you also have a LinkedIn profile. What's the one word that is consistent with all of these elements here? The one word, the reason why we have these little resources here for us as individuals is for one word, and that is marketing, right? That's the one word. We have these resources for us to market ourselves to stand out, okay? So now the times have changed. And so it's not so much the resume anymore, it's your LinkedIn profile, right? And so what's first, one of the first things candidates will go to when they're curious about your company, right? They'll go to your company page, website, but also they'll look at some of the workers there, their profiles, the hiring managers, their profiles, etc. So therefore, it's an absolutely critical for us as talent advisors to educate the hiring managers and leaders to really enhance their LinkedIn profile, right? Make it look presentable, right? Little nuances. Hey, change the URL, which is another term for that is a vanity URL. Change it so it doesn't have all the code. Implement a background on your profile, right? Add the featured section so you can add images. Maximize the about section on your profile. Make it look clean and neat. Don't put paragraphs, put lines, right? So that's one thing is the LinkedIn profile, but also on how to post, right? Where to find the job post. What's the difference between a job post and an actual post? How to craft a post, right? Put spaces, put white lines, put emojis, whatever it is, hashtags, etc. And so all those, it's an education piece, right? From the talent advisor to the hiring managers and leaders. Because like we mentioned before, you can't expect a leader to know all this. I mean, that's not their space, right? And so marketing necessarily isn't their space, if you will, right? So this is where we need to really have the one-on-ones during our kickoff calls, during our sync-up calls, guide them to what are the right resources that we have for leaders to access, right? How to present themselves in an interview, what questions to ask in an interview, right? Is it inclusive, right? All sorts of things are involved with this hire manager enablement side of things within the talent enablement. And so education, right? And so create workshops, create one-on-ones, group team workshops, etc. Whatever it takes to educate the hiring managers. Absolutely critical for them to know that they're a strategic partner.
Yeah. I think it's not only the how, it's also the why. And I
Yep.
think helping them understand that, you know, and a lot do, a good number do if they're, you know, digitally savvy. You know, consumers who are employees or prospective employees, candidates in the end, there's been a real big shift away from not trusting a company outright, not trusting a media source outright. And there's a level of authenticity of connecting with the person directly at the center of what they perceive to be the information. And so helping hiring managers understand that here's how you play that role, but why you play that role to really bring that real factor to the role, to the organization, I think is also really important.
Excellent point with that. And having the why is critical to that. they need to understand the influence as a hiring manager and leader that they have, right? So you just do a quick comparison, right? If a recruiter or a talent advisor sends an email to a candidate and the same email sent by the hiring manager, right? Obviously, who's the candidate going to reply to first, right? It's going to be the hiring manager, right? Because just because of the credibility sake, right? And so, but yes, absolutely, they need to understand the why behind it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's just take a quick break here and talk about technology, like, because I want to just touch on a couple of things that we've already covered before I go on to my actual question, right? So, Angelo, first of all, you talked about fax machines. I just want to tell you a quick story. This is really not to do with recruiter enablement, but it's one of these legendary things that you're gonna enjoy. When I first started in recruitment in 1999, I worked in an office with a whole bunch of people they had great survival instincts, shall we say. And there was one guy in particular who, every time he got, like, the fax came through with a job description in it from any company that wanted to work with him, to help them to fill the job, he knew that his arch rival was going to be getting the job description through at the same time on their fax machine at a company called Search. He would immediately send a 500-page fax to Search so that they couldn't get any resumes over to the.
To like jam it up.
That's brilliant. Sabotage. Oh, that's brilliant.
I love it.
Oh dear. Yeah,
It's like the original subtweet or sub comment.
Exactly. Let's just quickly talk about cell phones as well. I want to know, Holland, what was your first cell phone?
Ooh, so my first cell phone, I was 16. So I was born in 85, and so straddled kind of like pre-digital evolution, and like, lived through computer classes into cell phones, pagers, etc. I wasn't allowed to have a pager. It's a story for a different podcast. But my first cell phone was not the big brick Nokia, but the next little version of the Nokia. So it was definitely a Nokia.
I knew it was a Nokia. Everybody your age had a Nokia.
I can still like T99, like text like a champ. We also had like minutes. So, you had to hoard your minutes in order to like get all your texting in. That was I think that's it. Nokia 3310, Stephen. I think you nailed it.
I knew you had a Nokia. I had a Motorola. What did you have, Angelo?
I had a Nokia. It was a Nokia. It was, but before that, it was a pager. It was a pager. So
but Holland wasn't allowed one. She was like,
I was not.
But you and I were out in a nightclub with a pager, right? Like,
I love
bleeping.
Yeah,
exactly. I love it. We would get so the ice cream truck, like when it would come through the neighborhood, sold like bubblegum pagers. They were like plastic faux pagers that had gum inside, and so we would wear them around the schoolyard, just thinking we were cool, like our older siblings and people that we were seeing on MTV and like pop culture.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Right, you want to show off those little toys, right? So,
exactly.
I think, did I actually see Stephen McGrath, who works with me, posted in the chat, he was born in the 90s. I don't know if that's a joke or not. If it's a joke, you're fired because you're too young to be employed. Anyway, right. Technology in general, though, I mean, this is definitely an important aspect of enablement, right? So, like, what are the things we've talked about, like lots of different bits of it, but in terms of like platforms, the applicant tracking system, what's the role of recruiter enablement in actually making the applicant tracking system work for recruiters? The platform ones would be like the applicant tracking system, and if it's a separate one, a CRM. Like, tell us about that.
Okay, so this is going to vary from company to company, but at least from my experience, of course, obviously we had Workday. Now Workday is making some progress, right? Obviously, I don't want to get into this because if you become political here as far as Workday, but there's different elements, and so credit to Workday, they're trying to make some improvements, which is good. You can set up candidate pools in Workday. You can, of course, do the tagging system, etc. Now, we also use Smashfly X, as our CRM, or candidate relationship management. And so great technology, very innovative, it's intuitive as well. They also have different elements to the platform as well, where you can do campaigns. And so, of course, ours is a little bit different setup because we had more of an enterprise level, but we had limited access. And so we didn't use it to its fullest capabilities that I know we could have. And so, but those are some of the platforms we did use. We also, when it comes to college recruiting or campuses or main events, like so, for example, SWE, right, Society of Women Engineers, or SHIP, which is Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, or NSBE, which is Black Society of National Society of Black Engineers, right? And so we'll use a platform called Yellow. Yellow is really good when it comes to setting up interviews on the spot, right? Bulk interviews. And so those are different platforms we use for that. And then internally, as far as you want to get into job boards, is that the route you want to go as well, or?
Yeah, absolutely. Like talk about and think like assessment technologies and sourcing technologies. Like give us the summary of what else we should know about, what else we should be investigating.
You also mentioned talent intelligence. So if you can fold that in as well, I'd be really curious as to talent intelligence and how that plays a role, because I don't think as many companies have truly adopted a talent intelligence platform or platforms.
Right, absolutely. And so, of course, there's a Talent Neuron there, but there's also Draup. Draup is a newer platform, relatively speaking. That's about, I don't know, like now 5 to 6 years old now. And so this is definitely more for, they do a lot of strategic workforce planning, right? And so within the platform, you can have a brain desk. And so so the Draup team will create a slide for whatever you need. So whether if it's a functional safety engineer in the United States, in a certain location in the United States, they'll source all the information for that particular role and demographics and put it all into a PowerPoint slide for you to download and, of course, discuss it with the business partners, the leaders, etc. Right? And so those are one of the elements, but you can also do all sorts of things on the Draup platform, such as, I'm just trying to think on the top of my head here, as far as there's a recruitment angle to it, candidates. There's also a ecosystem where you can see specifically a demographics, right? So if you want to do, if you're doing like I'll give you an example here. At Rockwell, we had an opportunity where we wanted to build out another facility for the customer success team. Mm-hmm. And so some of the HR reps reached out to me and said, Angelo, can you help us create this Draup report for a strategic planning for another location? And so we partnered up with the Draup team, and it took a series of, probably like a few months just to get all this information. But they got anywhere from top locations, the cost of living, right, the universities, the talent pool, the competitors within these particular locations. So out of about 13 different locations that they identified in the EMEA region, they narrowed it down to 2 specific locations to build an office. One was Prague, Czech Republic, and the other one was Barcelona, Spain. They ended up picking Barcelona because we already had an office there. But all that came about because we were working with the Draup team to harvest this data, this massive data pools of information, and it just broke it down specifically by detail, even to the commute times, right? The transportation times, right? The cost, right? How to get to this office, right? And so that's how in depth this particular platform can go if you wanted to, right? And so there's different tiers, different modules within the Draup platform, but in my opinion, it's a phenomenal tool that I highly recommend people start looking into.
I guess you want to get in. One of your sort of responsibilities is to get into all the settings in the technologies and work out, are we making the best use of that bit of it and this module here and that solution and that feature that nobody else goes into. Most of the like 99% of Microsoft Word never gets used. Is the enablement's job to get into all the different little bits?
Yeah, well, that's a good point. That was my job, and that's what I love doing. And it's not like anybody told me to do that. I just did it out of curiosity. I say, hey, how is this resource being utilized, right? And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because one of the resources we have, and I'm not going to mention the name, but I noticed that there's only, and we had an enterprise level, but very few people were using it. Yeah, there's only like a hand, like 5 people were using it on a consistent basis, right? And so that brought some attention. I mean, why do we have this? Why do we have so many seats? You don't necessarily have to get rid of the technology, just maybe just lessen the amount of seats that you have, right? But that's important because that's a cost saving, right? What do we always hear on the talent acquisition team? Oh, we don't have the budget for this. Oh, we didn't, we have to look at this. We'll get back to you on this. We have to get the second, third level approval, right? We hear that on a constant basis from company to company. We don't have much of budget. Well, yay, I'm encouraging our TA team. If you have a resource handed to you, make the most of it. Make the most of it. Look at the different features that we have, the scope and capabilities that this particular tool has, and see how you can use it for your recruiting and sourcing needs, right? I mean, it just goes back to my days. When I first started, we didn't have all this stuff, right? We didn't have all this stuff. I mean, our network was, this is in the staffing world. Hey, you had to have 5 interview in-person setups on a day-to-day basis. You had to have 5 of them, because with the expectation of 2 of them are going to back out, right? And then when those candidates actually come in for a face-to-face interview, you have to ask them, you have to look at the resume. And what's the whole practice that we had for staffing? We had to look at the resume, and we had a game internally. Hey, how many names can you come up with this one resume, right? And that, it was incredible, because you can come up with 10, 12, 15 names on one person's resume, right? You're looking at hiring managers, referrals, etc. And so we had to do it just rogue, right? We had to manually go to the actual networking events, right? And so so now we have a lot of tools and technologies that already have access to this. And so, but a lot of people are not aware of that. And this is where the talent enablement comes in. You have to make their team members aware of what you have and use it to the utmost ability.
What's the link between or overlap with, or is there a hierarchy between enablement and recruitment operations or TA operations? Are these like side by side, or is there a Venn diagram, or what's the relationship?
Definitely a Venn diagram. The company I was formerly with, we had, of course, talent enablement. We worked partnered up with the recruiting operations department, and then there's also one for the contracts. Like they focus on the contracts of an actual technology. But we always synced up the last 5 years on, hey, best practices, and we'd always refer each other to a certain team member if they needed some help. And so, but yes, it's not a hierarchy. It's more of a partnership. It's more aligned with each other. And again, it's really going to vary from company to company.
Yeah. And before we wrap this up, because we're kind of nearing our time together, I want to talk a little bit about Talent Upskill Network. I want to bookend with a little personal about you. So tell me about Talent Upskill Network, some of your work that you're doing there, and how that maybe intersects with the enablement space.
Absolutely. So part of talent enablement is your teaching, your training. And I started to realize that, wow, a lot of people, they just want to be, they want to be guided to the right technologies, right? And so talent upskill is something that I just, more of a side project I created, more of a newsletter. Here are some great tips and strategies for upskilling. Here are some good resources for upskilling, whether it is TA, HR, project management, even on the technology side, where here's some upskilling opportunities for AI upskilling, or right, whatever, Python, whatever it is. And so I want to curate all these resources and put into, of course, this centralized hub, right? That's one aspect of the talent upskill. Another aspect is, so us on the talent acquisition side, we've talked to so many candidates and professionals, and a lot of them are unfortunately looking for work, right? And so this is a great opportunity for them to, hey, write up a piece about your knowledge, and we'll put it on the talent upskill, give you more exposure on a talent branding perspective, right? Gives you more exposure so you can champion yourself as a subject matter expert, a thought leader within this particular space that you are in. And so that is a whole mindset of the Talent Upskill Network. And so I've been talking to several of my colleagues, both as professionals, but also colleagues that also have their own businesses or startups, if you will. And I'm saying, hey, if you want to do a write-up, like a one-page write-up, I can put your put your company there as well on the company spotlight. And of course, you'll see our good friend Adam Gordon, one of our first guest authors on there, and you can see poetry on there as well. So that's a little bit about Talent Upscale, and yeah, it's definitely more of a side project that I'm doing.
No, I love it. I love it. One of my core beliefs is that, enablement plays a role in enabling recruiters, hiring managers, but I also think there's a role in enabling talent,
Yes.
making candidates be better candidates for you long term. And I think that really extends to, a level of giving back to the
Yes.
recruiting and candidate community altogether. So I love that you're doing that work there. Keep it up.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Just
Awesome.
wanted to get your thoughts, Angelo, on a question from Stephen, which is
Yeah.
to do with adoption of technologies. Um, he says, should you have like leaders in the team who learn how to use the technology and then cascade that use, or do you think just give everybody access, or like what's been your what's been successful for you?
Well, when it comes to certain technology, of course, it's important for the entire team member to know how to use technologies, right? And so now, of course, there's going to be different levels, different tiers of certain technology, right? And so for me, I was an admin for a lot of different resources. So let's just say, give it that, LinkedIn Recruiter, I was one of the admins there. So I saw everybody's workload, and I can get access. I can help them out on a support standpoint, but also on an individual contributor standpoint, it's important for them to know how to navigate a technology, right? And so, because even if something goes wrong, they know how to fix it themselves, right? And so it's absolutely important for, yes, the leader to know it on an administrative level and a training level, but individuals, it's important for them to know how to navigate it, because sometimes maybe a new leader comes in, they won't know how to use that product, but you will as an individual contributor. And so, and I've seen that over and over throughout my tenure, right? Even if it's a simple job board, right? And that, by the way, that's one of the foundations of recruiting enablement, is that you definitely need to know the technologies that you have, right? It's important, right? It's absolutely important. The little nuances of a job board. So whether it's a leadership or individual, if you're on the talent acquisition team, you need to know how to use a technology that you have access to.
Okay. So look, you've given us loads of great information today. One of the things I always think about when I talk to you, Angelo, is that you're a very clear communicator, and you explain things in real straightforward terms. And I think that's one of the secrets of your success. And everybody should definitely learn from that. If I'm talent acquisition manager in some company, I think we need to start doing a lot more in this area around enabling recruiters better to help them be more productive and successful. Like, where's the place to start? What's the first thing I should do? Just give us like final kind of nugget of gold from Angelo.
Right. And so definitely the baseline is, again, knowing what you have access to and how to navigate with those particular platforms. But also at the same time, don't be afraid to venture out and be creative, especially nowadays. What are we all becoming nowadays as far as on the talent acquisition side? And even now, hiring managers, we're all becoming content creators, right? And so it's okay to have that, splash that creativity in there with, if you're going to post something on LinkedIn, you have to be creative in order to stand out, right? And so definitely know your foundation has got to be, what do you have access to right now? Whether it's your ATS, how to navigate the ATS, ins and outs of it. You have access to job boards, right? Whether it is a smaller regional job board, what's the ins and outs, right? What are the capabilities? Does it sync up with our platforms internally, right? You need to know that, because that can help out with the efficiency as well when people are applying. And even if something goes wrong, you can actually do some maintenance on there as well. And then, of course, it's important to understand, of course, the company guidelines, what you should be saying, like the etiquette, like social media etiquette, right? And so, the do's and don'ts, right? Right. Obviously, you don't want to get in an argument online with a competitor. I mean, that type of stuff, right? Report any type of harassment, right? If you state your opinion, make sure that it's your opinion. It's not on behalf of the company, right? And so all those guidelines are really important. So make sure you know the technologies, the legalities, the guidelines of what you should, the branding, right? But then also at the same time, make sure that you continue to equip yourself on the latest and greatest when it comes to the social media platforms, right? the social networking platforms, not just LinkedIn, but also, hey, what's the nuances with Facebook? What's the nuances with Instagram? We didn't have access to TikTok, but I know some companies do. So what's the nuances with there? And just understand the power of these platforms, right? I know we're at the end here, but just real quick, I remember one of the HR reps, one of the executive directors at my former company, he reached out to me and said, Angelo, can you help me out with my LinkedIn profile and some posts and strategies? So I met with him one-on-one to give him some strategies, and he ended up posting an opportunity that we had. It was for an executive level marketing position. He did a simple post, Hey, we're actively hiring here. Come join our culture. I mean, the post was good, the way he crafted it. And after he posted it, it spread out to his entire network, and somebody referred him to a strong candidate. This candidate ended up going with our company as opposed to another major company that he had an offer with, all because of that post, and that cost $0, right? If we would have went to the headhunter service, right? Of course, you're spending thousands of dollars for the same type of efforts and role. And so it's important for the team members to know how to post on social media now and how to brand yourself.
Angelo, thank you so much. You've given us so much value today. It's been great to see you, and look forward to catching up soon.
Yeah,
all right,
we'll see
very
everybody
good.
in the new year.
Happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the pumpkin pie.
Yes.
Take care.
Likewise. All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.